morning, Rick.
Daryl, it's good to see you again.
You too. What's cooking?
Well, we're going to be doing some tail today. We're doing alligator and oxtail, but we already got the alligator wrestled back into the kitchen, so we're looking for some oxtail.
Okay, well, I think we can rustle you up some tail in the back.
Okay, let's go.
Right. Well, these are oxtails, and they're quite long from tip to start.
Are these really from oxes?
They're not. They're just called oxtail. The actual ox is from, I believe, India. These are just from regular cattle.
There seems to be quite a bit of meat on this.
They got to be strong, is what the tail is doing. It's whipping flies and stuff off the rear end of the cattle.
Okay, and what makes it so flexible?
It's the vertebrae. It's just kind of like a backbone. It's very flexible, and it moves around every which way.
Normally, are these sold like this, or are they?
They're not. They're either notched out between the vertebrae, and the way you do that is you find a little divot in the bone there, and you should go right through the cartilage of the bone. So there again, you feel the little divot, and you'll be able to slide right through it. Or you can cut them on the bandsaw, but to get them whole, you wouldn't be able to unless you went to the slaughter.
Welcome back to the kitchen. Glad to have our special guest, Dr. Rick Hugh.
Alan, it's a pleasure to be here.
Hey, pleasure's all mine, but someone whose pleasure is not is one of our gator friends here, because we've got some gator meat to make a beautiful gator tail pilau. What can you tell us about this gator meat we have?
Look at this piece right here, and I can see there's a lot of striations going through here. And I think,
striation, which would mean?
well, these little white things going through here. And when I looked at it, I cut this up actually myself. You know, you had a really sharp knife, and it was great.
It gets a surgeon pretty excited, you know, when you put them in the back with the piece of meat and a sharp knife.
And actually, when we look at this, we can see what the chefs would call the silver skin.
Right, which you find on a beef or a pork tenderloin, and if you've ever cooked them, most recipes tell you have to remove them before you cook.
Well, when I look at this, it looks like fascia.
But what is fascia? What's its role?
Well, the fascia is the tough outer covering around the muscle. And what that does is it provides a little bit more support for the muscle, so that when the muscle pulls, it exerts its force properly.
So it's a muscle holder, really.
That's right, and all of our muscle groups are surrounded by this tough fascia. In fact, the alligator's fascia, I think, is a much tougher one than we would see in other animals, either two-legged or four-legged.
Well, in fact, alligator generally is tough. The only part you can eat is the tail. The rest of it's all too sinewy, and I would imagine there's an awful lot of this fascia in there. It really is a nice palette to paint a meal on, this type of meat, because it's very, very white and very, very fleshy once you cook it. So why don't we get started?
Great.
First thing we're going to do is get our pan up to nice high heat. All we want to do is saute the gator, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the bigger pieces out, and I'm just going to take the ones we cut. So let's start cooking. Thanks, Doctor. So we just want to get this going, and in a second we'll take a look once we get it cooking, and you can see how the flesh really changes. So in your field, when you're looking at a spine, and I know that this is what excites you about these tails, what is it that makes it so fleshy and firm?
Well, a lot of it has to do with the different, or the many muscles that are surrounding the spine. The spine itself is, if you just look at the bones, and we have a spine right here, if we just look at the bones, it's a fairly unstable structure. The parts that are actually keeping it together are the ligaments and the discs in between, and also the muscles. If this is like building blocks that are stacked one on top of the other, and without all of those surrounding structures, this tends to be very unstable.
Right. So what we're seeing is the meat and the flesh and the tendons are actually what's holding this building block structure together.
That's right. That's right.
You know, you can see here now that this is starting to sweat down. It's giving off quite a bit of fluid, so we're just going to let that saute for a while. So to make our pilau now, we're just going to move on. I'm going to get a nice big Dutch oven or big heavy pot, and take a little bit of olive oil and get started, because really what we're going to do is we're going to make a rice dish where the rice is going to cook along with everything else, and that's really what a pilau is. we have a very almost Cajun-like way to cook this gator, which is we start with onions. This is about 2 large onions. And again, we just want to get this nicely sweat. We've got some tomatoes. And again, this is about 1 cup or so of tomatoes. And those are fresh. No need to skin them. Everything goes in. And this is about 4 large cloves of garlic we're putting in.
Well, this is looking wonderful. The redness and the color.
Yeah, and it's
Would you
going
like me to do that?
Yeah, in fact, what we should do as well is we have some bell pepper, and while we're sweating these vegetables now, let's put in this bell pepper, and that's just 1 large bell pepper. Now, at some point in our history as humans, did we have tails?
Well, we still have a little bit of a tail, and it's what's called the coccyx.
Okay.
The coccyx is the vestigial, I guess, the remnant as we started to stand and walk upright.
Now, with respect to this, you want some heat in it as well. And I'm using some Thai chili pepper, but you can use datil pepper or red chili flakes, but whatever you want for heat. You could even use Tabasco, frankly, but we need a little bit of heat. And again, if you're using sauce as opposed to dry peppers, I'd say about 1/4 teaspoon. I like my food a little bit hotter, but
yeah, a little bit more.
But we don't want to have people having nosebleeds. You want a little bit more? Okay, we'll have a bit of a nosebleed sauce. But and you can smell. The first thing that happens when you put that in, you get a wonderful smell off of that chili. And we've got a really nice thing happening in terms of what's going on in the pot. Now, while you're stirring that, I'm going to say that the other thing about this is once we've got it sweated like this, really nicely, what we want to do is we want to add, in a classic pilau fashion, some rice. The recipe calls for long grain rice, and we're using, in this case, basmati, which is my favorite long grain rice. So let's add our rice. And last but not least, to make a classic pilau, we've got about 2 cups of chicken stock for that 1 cup of rice that we just added in. Now that we've got everything nicely in this pot, the last couple of things, just to give it some flavor, a sprig of fresh thyme.
A little bit of thyme on your hands?
I got a little bit of thyme on. We got nothing but thyme on our hands. And with that, about 4 bay leaves added into it. Now once this simmers for 20 minutes, what we want to do is we want to take our gator, which has been sauteed, and we just want to finish the dish by adding the gator. And I'm going to get you, Dr. Rick, to keep stirring that. So here we go. All right, we're ready to go, Doc. Why don't you get a plate?
Okay.
We'll get ready to do this.
Wow, this looks beautiful.
It does, and you know, it's such a nice color. Beautiful color. Let's do this together.
Oh, first day with the new hands.
The skill of a surgeon. Very nice. Now, the other thing about this dish is that it's great because it's sort of all-in-one thing. You know, you probably don't want to serve this with anything else, just as a main, or it's got everything in it. It's got your starch, it's got your meat, it's got your vegetables. And that is a beautiful dish. So let's leave our beautiful alligator pilau and go onward and upward to oxtail.
But I'm hungry.
Now. Patience is a virtue. What's a doctor without patience?